Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Gundam Podcast, where we have a very special guest today. Very, very, very special. And this is my good friend, Aaron. So if you want to know the origin story about why I became such a huge fan of Gundam, this is the guy. This is the guy that introduced Gundam Wing to me back in like fourth grade. This is my first grade friend. And thank you so much, Aaron, for being a part of this whole project of mine. Welcome. Thank you.
You're welcome. I mean, this is okay. This is my first appearance on any sort of podcast. I apologize.
Yeah. So very honored. Thank you so much. But the huge chunk of our channel, the huge chunk of my knowledge derives over the last couple of years on Gunpla. So for many of people who are tuning in who don't really know about all of this, giant robot anime back in the 70s and 80s really got the bread and butter from not the anime itself, kind of like what you see nowadays with things like DVD box sets or like Blu-rays or like things like that, but it mostly got its funding from merchandise, from the sale of toys. And so a lot of people nowadays kind of see that same pattern where a lot of people, like we were talking about before, getting into Gundam in 2020, tend to get their exposure from Gundam by going to their local Targets, their Walmarts, their Barnes and Noble, where you can now buy Gunpla model kit, plastic model kits, or through figures or something like that. But back when Aaron and I were still, wee lads, going to grade school and shooting Kamehameha blasts on the schoolyard, we got a lot of our exposure from watching the anime. And so Aaron will be coming onto the podcast with kind of roughly the same amount of experience as I have, just in lore. So we're going to be really excited to be able to dive in with him and his fellow friend Kevin later on in the future regarding, Gundam analysis and lore. And I'm especially looking forward to talking with you guys after the Hathaway's Flash movie comes out, because man, oh man, that's gonna be bonkers. That's gonna be nuts. I'm really excited for that.
That's like they pushed it to like March, right?
I think so. So I know in San Diego specifically, there are some venues that you can go and watch anime movies, kind of like they did in the past. They showed narrative, but I'm not sure if because Aaron doesn't live here in the San Diego area, you live in the Ventura County area. I don't know if there's too many theaters that actually show anime movies in the Ventura County area.
There's one particular. Also, I apologize in advance if my lighting is a little harsh.
Oh no, it's fine. It's okay.
This is a bit impromptu. Also, I'm working with my work PC. I've only been working from home for the last couple of weeks. So I apologize for this mess behind me to all your loyal viewers. Anyhow, there's one theater in particular locally in Oxnard, over in what is now known as River Park. There's a new big old development there. It's been active for the last couple of years. They added a new movie theater. They added all kinds of swanky new restaurants and stuff. So the Oxnard River Park theater is kind of like from my experience, where whenever there's like a limited release movie of any sort, that's kind of like the place to go to. Like when Shin Godzilla had its limited release, I saw it there. I saw Gundam Narrative there. And also the last movie I saw before everything went to hell was My Hero Academia Heroes Rising.
Okay.
I saw that sub there. And they give you like a choice where like certain days have subs, certain days have the dub showing.
Right.
But yeah, so there's one theater, it's a pretty big theater too, in Oxnard, that caters to this kind of thing, I suppose.
Okay, cool. So for any of our viewers who are in the Ventura County area, now you have a good place to go and check things out. Here specifically in San Diego, we have a number of spots, including the Edwards Cinema that shows a lot of stuff, the Angelica Theater, as well as the Reading Cinemas. I think they showed some limited releases like Silent Voice and I think I saw the Dragon Ball Super movie there about 6 times at that theater. So,
Actually, but yeah, I saw. I don't mean to cut you off, but
oh no, it's fine.
I saw Broly at that. Actually, no, pardon me. I saw Broly at a theater in Thousand Oaks when it came out, and then the next day I saw it at a theater in Santa Clarita. But
Right. Okay.
I bet my bottom dollar that the Oxnard theater that I saw all these other movies at also had Broly. But
Nice.
I think Broly had like a very limited, like the first week was like a very tight handful of theaters in the Southern California area. But
Yeah, I know Funimation was really pushing that. I think they definitely spread out a little bit more, just because Dragon Ball is such a notorious IP here in the United States because of all the stuff that happened about 20 years ago. And so nobody wants to miss out on capitalizing on that type of opportunity of being able to make a couple extra bucks for showing a show that's not only popular with the demographic between the ages of about 30 and 40 years old, but now with Super being released on Toonami, that has now come back and in full swing. New like 11, 12, 13-year-olds who are being exposed to the Dragon Ball franchise as well. So, it stands to reason that they're going to open things up a little bit more for Dragon Ball, but you'll see that kind of tightening down for other more obscure movies. Gundam being, one of those more obscure IPs.
oh yeah, like I think it was recently. It was really recently like unsafe to go to movie theaters recently where they had the Char's counterattack showings.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I honestly like I'd love to see that movie on the big screen. I never have.
Mm-hmm.
But now more than like it's just irresponsible to put a movie out in theaters right now, especially in North America, as far as I'm concerned. Like it's just I mean, I haven't been to a showing in this climate, so I can't, say to what protocols theaters have or they don't. But
So,
is it,
yeah, we kind of looked into
you
that
can't
a little bit. It's very difficult to
you can't
it's
trust other people to, like I could totally sit through a 2 hour movie, just mask on, just dead face, just like enjoy the movie. I can do that. But you can't trust other people to do that. And they eat and they laugh, and it's airborne virus. It's just it's just a mess here. So I mean, I'm very looking forward to the point where going to an indoor movie is practical again. But I can't fathom that for like another year. Especially that's the problem with Hathaway's Flash coming out. Is that and this speaks to a whole other thing where like anime dubbing and anime subbing has been, delayed by some companies are more on it than others. Crunchyroll right now is incredibly on point with dubbing right now. Like Jujutsu Kaisen is 3 episodes into what's currently a 10-episode run out of 24. But for things like movies, the whole other ball game. So like Hathaway's Flash, like that situation, like they could say it'll be out in theaters in America in May. I wouldn't feel like comfortable seeing it, unless they did the VOD option, like Warner Brothers. They announced that all their 2021 movies are going to HBO Max.
Well, I would say that they've established a pretty firm infrastructure with YouTube. So on the off chance that they want to, they can region lock Hathaway's Flash for just the North American audience and then release it there. Because kind of like what I was mentioning before, most of their sales is not really going to go towards the actual theatrical release. That's more of just a glorified commercial, so to speak.
That's true.
Because really what they're trying to sell is the Penelope and Cassie models and the new P Bandai Penelope and Cassie special effect weapon set, as well as the high grade Messer that was released sometime late last year. So as long as they can recoup their losses from that, I think they're fine with releasing that movie, because they've done so with the last few Gundam series. Actually, Iron Blood Orphans is available on YouTube. Re-Rise and Divers were on YouTube as well. So you don't even have to go through Crunchyroll in order to enjoy a lot of the Gundam shows. Actually, Char's Counterattack, F91, most of Double Zeta, and I think Seed and Seed Destiny at some point were also freely available on YouTube as well.
Oh yeah, because I watched Char's Counterattack most recently on the Gundam Info YouTube page. It's since been removed. They currently have F91 up, but right. They have a very rotating door of what content they have or they don't have up.
Yeah,
especially I mean there's a big
thing to kind of
there's a big deal too with Funimation just got Mobile Suit Gundam. I think it's the first legal streaming option for the original Gundam ever in the U.S.
Right. Yes.
But they also they got Unicorn, but Unicorn's been on Netflix on and off for the last couple of years. And I also think they got the Seed HD remaster and Seed Destiny. But I also my experience with Seed is
okay. Yeah, that's all right. I mean, I like Seed, so it's not a huge deal. But I think it's
maybe if I give it a chance. It's just one of those things. I copped it when I was younger, and I was like, oh, this is like if Double O did Universal Century, and I don't fuck with it.
Oh. Okay.
Can I swear on this?
I mean, you already did, so it's it's fine.
I'll try to pump the brakes.
Oh no, it's okay. But anyway, yeah, it's I think it would be really nice for Gundam fans, especially with the whole Japanese style of like the revolving door kind of. You know, you want to kind of generate demand. So what you do is you only have stuff open for a limited time. You cut that out, but because Funimation now has Mobile Suit Gundam, like what you're saying, or the rights for Mobile Suit Gundam, and they're going to work on distribution for that, then finally people are going to be able to watch the original Mobile Suit Gundam without having to rely on bootlegs, without having to rely on torrenting old MP4 files that's stuck on people's hard drives. What's up?
Or like for instance, I've got you can't see it, my mess over here, but like especially like the Mobile Suit, the trilogy movie for Mobile Suit Gundam, which is honestly like one of the better compilations of Gundam.
Yeah, personally, I really like the trilogy.
I would honestly, like, a lot of people come to me and they're like, oh, like, where should I start with Gundam? And I'd say like, well, now that Mobile Suit Gundam, the series is like you can stream it like that with Funimation for $5 a month or whatever. Like I'd be like, yeah, just watch it there now. It's easy. But for a while, I would recommend for the original series for like newcomers. Like I'd say watch the original series, but if you don't have that kind of time, just like watch the 3 movies because those are the best compiled. That's the best compilation of Gundam in my opinion. Is the original.
Yes. For me personally, story-wise, I always like going back to the original just because there's so much that you can kind of unpack with it. Definitely after Char's counterattack, everything kind of seemed more and more commercialized.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, you could probably even argue that after the original series, everything was very commercialized.
Oh yeah, well,
there was just so much more risk.
Didn't the original series get kind of? Pardon me, I'm sorry. Didn't the original series get kind of axed because it wasn't meeting like model sales?
They weren't reaching toy sales.
Okay.
So the story with Gunpla is that just kind of like with every other robot show, they wanted to sell toys. So that's why you have the colors for the RX-78 that you have. It's very bright and vibrant. It's very toy-like. But
everything. Gundam is a tremendous toy commercial that just breezes over the horrors of war.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's like, oh, look at this despicable genocide, but for the love of God, please buy our model kits. Like,
right.
And that's so, Tomino's kind of his sneak in a horrific message in between sales.
And so what happened was because the toy sales were not doing as great because it involved a lot of stuff that people weren't really used to in terms of the real robot type of storytelling, where you actually had that kind of horror of war and stuff. It wasn't very popular with the general audience, and so sales slumped. So it actually they cut Mobile Suit Gundams short by a couple of episodes. So that's why the original run is only something like about 44, 46 episodes.
Yeah, it's short, the typical
maybe
Gundam
42,
50, you know?
if anything. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Mobile Suit Gundam was the original real robot show, right? Because everything else was Super Robot, because it was all like Mazinger and
yeah, and Tejujin 28 Go and all that kind of stuff. But it was actually they then deconstructed the toy and then turned it into a model kit in order to not appeal to the younger generation of about 6 to 10 years old, but then to appeal to the people who are a little bit older, who then would watch the Mobile Suit Gundam TV show back, or like on VHS or something like that. You would go back and watch the show, and then they would say, oh, there's really, really cool, interesting things about this show that speak to a college level audience, so like 18 to 22-year-olds.
Yeah.
And so then they started
sign-in audience.
Right. Yeah. So then they repurposed these model kits, or these toys, turn them into model kits to advertise to these older people, and then the Gundam boom truly began right after that. So,
pardon me. Yeah. So I would say with Zeta is when everything started to
yeah, everything
became money for Sunrise.
Yeah, everything became much more of a toy boom, because then you had the different Gundam things. So for people who don't really know about the history of Zeta Gundam, the reason why you had 3 Gundams is because there was actually a competition. They couldn't figure out who would be the main Gundam. So what they did was Tomino asked 3 different mechanical designers to create 3 different Gundams. Whichever was the most popular one would be showcased in the show. They were all so good that they slapped every single one of them in. That's why you have the Mark II, that's why you have the Zeta, and that's why you have the Hyakushiki, I believe. And so that is kind of a nice trivia, and that kind of almost spurred the whole trope of like the Gundam team. And you kind of see that in later series with, G Gundam, actually with Double Zeta, G Gundam, Gundam Wing, Double O. You even bleed it out to like build fighters and divers.
Yeah, I haven't watched any of the shows that are specifically about Gunpla. I don't think I can give those the time and effort, because it's one of those things where
they're pretty good, man. I mean, like, I've watched all of them. They're pretty solid shows. I mean, okay.
I imagine they're good, like shonen, battle series. But I mean, there came a point in my life where, like, for instance, our introduction to Gundam was Gundam Wing. And I was somehow the one that showed that to you. And then, watch Gundam Wing. We were in 4th, 5th grade when it came out in America. And then Mobile Suit Gundam aired shortly after that. And then Zeta, I didn't like the whole Universal Century. I didn't really catch wind to the greater series until probably about 19, 20 years old. We had to torrent it,
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's another thing. That's another issue I take. That makes me nervous about being on a podcast too. Is that I didn't catch the proper Universal Century until my early 20s, and then I've been moving around a lot the last 10 years. So I haven't seen Zeta since I was 19, 20. I haven't seen Double Zeta since then. Like, most recent, I've seen Shark's Counterattack. I've never seen Turn A. That's a problem. I've never seen Turn A. I have Stardust Memories, one of my favorites, so I have that on Blu-ray. Let's see, the 8th MS Team. I haven't seen that in 6 years, maybe. War in the Pocket, I haven't seen in quite a while. So it's all these things I've seen for sure, but I've got 21st century brain damage that's making me.
It's okay.
I've had quite a rough decade, I suppose.
That's all right. So we'll we'll go onto the crucifix together. So I'll disclose all this too. So when I was first starting out, I watched Gundam Wing, and I bought all the model kits or the action figures, right?
Yeah. We were buying like you, me,
Yeah.
and Bobby, and I don't know if Shelby was as much into them as we were.
He was kind of into it, but I remember he was a little bit into it.
But I
Yeah,
remember Bobby was all about Sandrock, if I remember right. Bobby Fowler. He was.
We could probably ask him, honestly.
I haven't talked to him in a while. Like, I don't even know. Is he still on Facebook? Who knows? But yeah, there was a core where it was like you and me were like the actual like Gundam heads, and then there was kind of like a separation of guys that were about it, but not.
They just couldn't see.
It. Yeah, they liked it, but they didn't like. When I rewatched Gundam Wing, I like realized like how much like pardon me, like the whole political intrigue when I rewatched Gundam Wing in high school when the box set DVDs were coming out. A friend of mine was collecting them, and we watched those. And I was like, oh wow, I think like what really like got me into Gundam Wing, you know, obviously like the whole like you know like fourth grade brain and giant robots and here are you, I'll kill you, and he blows himself up but doesn't die, like that obviously like that set off the lizard brain, pardon me, but I think I had a low key attraction to a show that had political intrigue that was just like on Toonami suddenly one day, you know, because obviously like I'm you know I'm a walking Dragon Ball encyclopedia thanks to Toonami, you know, Dragon Ball Z showed up and my friend. But I think Gundam, especially Gundam Wing, obviously is my first Gundam series. But I think one of the things that really attracted me to this whole fucking
That's fine. But yeah, it was the same thing for me too. Yeah, just to help you out, it was the same thing for me too. It was all that political intrigue that really helped to gravitate me toward it time and time again, because you'd watch it initially and be like, oh, cool, explosions and giant robots that look really shiny and cool. And then the second time you watch it, you're like, oh, cool, I can dissect it a little bit. I remember this one memory. I really wanted to watch Gundam Wing because it was towards the era of Toonami where it wasn't as popular anymore. So you saw it getting pushed back further and further.
Oh yeah.
My mom had to go and do some census work. And so I went over to that person's house with my mom while she was filling that out. And, yeah, something like that. Yeah. So she was bringing us along, and they sat us in front of the TV, and I was like, oh, Gundam Wing is on. Like, I want to go and watch this. And the person who was kind of like babysitting us in the room was the daughter of the family, and she was about 13 years old. And so she turned on the TV, and she was like, she watched it with us, and she was like, why is this show so interesting? All they've done is talk this entire time. And I'm like, but that's like the appeal of the show, right? And I was really hoping, honestly, I was really hoping that there would be like some sort of explosion to be like, see, this is what the show is about. Like, it's exciting, cool.
Yeah, from an outsider.
Yeah, but most of the show was just talking.
The way it was presented on Toonami was, they, you know, obviously like robot fights and explosions, and but the whole shtick with Oz and the colony, and also the colonies, you know, obviously they're, you know, another stand-in for the Space Noid Liberation from the UC series. Yeah, something about that. It was they dumbed it. It's a weird way for me to put it, especially since I'm nervous because I've never been on recording for a podcast.
Yeah, it's okay.
But they kind of did a thing where they had to dumb it down for U.S. children's television, but they didn't insult the viewer's intelligence in a way, you know? So they never shied from the politicism of Gundam Wing.
And I think that's definitely a huge thing, because for specifically children's TV. So, okay, I think we might have to just dive into another podcast specifically talking about the influence of Toonami, because Toonami was just ridiculous in its introduction to a lot of different specifically violent and adult themes.
Well, Toonami,
in like a kid's in
Yeah.
like
Well,
kind of package.
Toonami, you can singularly point to, you know, anime as it is now, where it's more mainstream than it's ever been. You can't. I would say it's mainstream, but Toonami is the singular point for where anime is right now in America, where you look at professional athletes like just gush about how much they love Dragon Ball when they were growing up. Dudes our age that are just tackling each other for money. Like professional athletes. There's a wide breadth. Musicians, movie stars. Like there's all like
Yeah,
Megan
people like
Thee Stallion. One of the biggest musicians
Hmm?
in the game right now. She came up on. She loves anime. I mean,
Yeah,
I think she's
there's
more of like a Naruto kind of person, but
there's like
to
Nicki Minaj, Michael
yeah.
B. Jordan.
Oh yeah.
I think
I think they're part of like the kind of like splinter generation just under us. They came up on Naruto. Because
Yeah.
when Naruto got big in the US, we were already in high school, and I'd already been reading Naruto in the English Shonen Jump since 6th grade.
Yeah, but then there's even people like the Wachowski brothers and stuff like that too,
Well,
in Hollywood who are just so ingrained.
hey, I have to. They've come out as they're not brothers. They're sisters now. I
Oh,
got
really? Okay, I
Yeah,
didn't know.
they both come out as trans, so I don't want them misgendered in
Oh,
this.
yeah, sure, no problem. I
So
actually I didn't know.
oh yeah, that's a whole other thing. Well, yeah, but yeah, they're anime. I mean, they're anime influence. I mean, they're well older than us, so they're pulling from like Demon City, Shinjuku, and stuff like that. They're pulling from the OVAs from the '80s with insane animation and so on and so forth. But yeah. I mean, we could gush about Toonami's influence all the live long day, but it is singularly like it's why anime is what it is in the West right now, and it it needs all the credits and accolades it deserves, because it's just insane to think that one 3 to 4 hour programming block Monday through Friday in 1999 or whatever could like change the sphere of pop culture, because a lot of Cartoon Network's original programming now kind of homages the shit we grew up on. So
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what made Gundam Wing so interesting, because it was part of that block from Toonami that exposed children to topics that you would not normally hear about. Like you don't talk about topics like this in 3rd, 4th grade. You don't talk about breaking people's arms like in Dragon Ball or political intrigue like in Gundam. You don't talk about,
the politics we were getting
feminist empowerment from like Sailor Moon in 3rd grade, 4th grade classrooms. Most of the time, we're still trying to learn how to not eat mud. So
yeah, they're trying to tell us that the imperialists that stole land from native Californians is good. No, but we had to make those mission models anyway.
Yeah,
it's a whole mess.
So, but yeah, for me personally, so circling back and talking about the original stuff, joining you on the crucifix. So I started out with Gundam Wing, and then when Toonami came out, I watched everything else that was on it. G Gundam, 8th MS Team.
Yeah, we watched G Gundam a lot together. I remember.
Yeah, we did. That was like all of middle school. And then when Gundam Seed came out, I found out about it, and so I watched the first 16 episodes religiously. I recorded that, and then they cut it off the air. And then so I watched the first 16 episodes, or like 25 episodes, up until the recap, and then I realized they actually put it on a midnight run. So I watched the last 2 episodes, 49 and 50. And I watched those and I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Okay, so I don't remember if you know or the audience knows what happens in those last 2 episodes. It's been like 10 years, so it's not a spoiler warning anymore. Basically, they nuke everything, everybody dies, there's a giant space war, and then you have funnels everywhere, and there's a lot of blood. This is Seed. Like everybody gets like popcorn nuked from Genesis. Like it's crazy.
Okay, so because my Gundam trajectory was, so Gundam Wing, and then G Gundam, Mobile. I think Mobile Suit Gundam aired before G Gundam on Toonami, but we're so the Toonami years.
So,
I'll say that the initial
yep.
school Toonami years going into middle school,
Mm-hmm.
kind of fell off for a bit, and then Double O started airing on the Sci-Fi Channel.
That was way after. That was basically when we're in college.
No. This was like 2007. I was in high school. I was like a sophomore in high school.
Because 2007 is when Double O. Oh, you were talking about season 1. I was already watching season 2 at that time.
So I caught Double O on the Sci-Fi Channel one day. I was like, what the? And then I realized I was like, oh, this is like if Seed did Gundam Wing, but I also appreciate a Double O. Something about Double. I don't know. Double O's whole, it apes Gundam Wing, obviously. But
so
it's a my look at it. It's a post 9/11 take at Gundam Wing.
No, that's exactly what it's supposed to be. Yeah. So it's a post 9/11. It's actually the first post 9/11 Gundam, which makes it really unique by having a Middle Eastern main character, specifically talking about terrorism. But then the second huge thing was that they want to make it super applicable to modern day and the globalization of everything. Because I actually went to 2 directors panels at Anime Expo for specifically Gundam Double O, where the director did want to emphasize on bringing in the youth culture into modern day politics and to global economic politics. And so after that, you also need to bring in the girls. So they hired a yaoi artist to create the character designs for everybody, which is why everybody looks like, really sexy looking.
Yeah, they're all
lock on, like with those abs and like that slick back hair, like
they're all Bishi archetypes,
Yeah, and so I remember going to another panel for that for Anime Expo, and I was like, oh cool, she was the character designer for Gundam Double O. As soon as I walk in, sea of girls everywhere. And I was like, this is kind of weird. And so I sit down and they're like, okay, we're gonna start taking questions. The first 3 questions, I kid you not, was just all about her yaoi works. And I was like, all right, shots, let's go. We're leaving this panel.
Unless if it's the artist for Banana Fish, that's a great yaoi series. I don't know. It's BL, but it's
personally I haven't checked it out, so it is technically on my list of things to check out. But yeah, so Double O was highly successful because of that formula of attracting girls, making everything. Oh, I remember reading in a New Type magazine as well that what they were aiming to do with Gundam Double O was to give it American action film director style scenes, like fight scenes.
Well, the first episode looks like Black Hawk Down, like when they introduced Setsuna,
Yeah, so that was like their whole gimmick. They wanted to make the action scenes look as like American action styled as possible. And I think a large portion of the popularity of Double O, specifically in the United States, I think we mentioned this at another podcast where we talk about, Gundam in America and that kind of stuff. That's a really big reason why it's so popular here, is because it's so action packed. Like you will find so many clips of fights from Double O on YouTube, but very little of stuff from like Kerne. Maybe just like the cow and scene and like the clothes drying scene.
That's the thing. So Kerne, I know, like I know that's kind of like the linchpin point, like the crossroads between UC and AC kind of stuff,
Sort of. So basically it was supposed to be Tomio's seminal work that linked everything together. But essentially, so they kind of released this on one of their projects for 2020, which is essentially this grand story. Basically every single timeline is actually linked together in a linear fashion. And what happens is that after the end of their era, Turn A comes out and resets everything.
So turn A is what everything becomes like. That's when everything becomes like Wing and After War Gundam X.
So like imagine like the UC and the UC dies out. Humanity still exists and persists on, but then AC will come out. And then once all of AC goes away, then everything resets again. Right?
So wait,
so like after, so think like in terms of like millennia. So I'll link the video to you and you'll just be like, whoa, this is how the Gundam franchise is trying to connect everything now.
Because I know
because everything is the turn A.
Because I know turn A was kind of like supposed to be like the like crossroads between the UC and the alternate universes, but also there's kind of like obviously like you know, like I didn't catch I caught Unicorn 10 years ago the first time, and that's the kind of thing too, is that they're kind of like, since they're adapting like you know, the novels I'm not like terribly familiar with, like
the Bandashi models or model.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the manga or sorry, models, the model kits?
Like the novels.
Or the novels. Okay, so, yeah, the Bandashi.
So like Unicorn, like when the Unicorn OVAs came out, that kind of like opened my eyes. I was like, oh, there's all sorts of UCs. Like I knew about F91 and I knew about Victory Gundam, but I didn't know about their placement in the UC timeline. So now we get kind of like weird, kind of like contradictory timelines, you know, where it's like a series ends in the late 80s and then, you know, it's like, oh, and then we have, you know, F91 30 years or whatever in the future, but Unicorn is between that, and then Victory is over here. And so, so like that took me a bit of catching up to do in my life.
Because you have tons of stuff afterwards too. You have the Crossbone series that happens afterwards. We have Grave Stoke, you know, the old Judo Ashta that comes back. Then you have stuff like Gaia Gear, where you have like the clone of Char. You have other stuff that we talked about.
That's new to me.
Yeah. You also have other stuff. Yeah, Gaia Gear is like nuts. It's insane. It's crazy.
Yeah, because I'm so
like Ghost Gundam and Phantom Gundam. And then you have other things like the thing we were talking about on the previous two podcasts, the Ninja Gundam, and like that lore and everything. It's a Gaijin, Mobile Gaijin, something like that. It's actually the old G3 that was repurposed and stolen. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So the G3 Gundam is the upgraded version of the RX-72 that was fitted with magnetic coating. So it could help with resistance and stuff to make its movements more slick for Amuro. And so they test bedded that technology onto the G3, but then it was stolen by the Earth Federation by a ninja and given to Degwin Zabi. Degwin Zabi was so distraught with the death of Barma that he didn't care about it. He just said, take it. I don't even want the G3 anymore. We're fine. We don't need that. He was kind of basically going crazy. That's why Girin kind of like came in afterwards. Yeah. And so then the ninja then hopped into the G3 and he started to just kind of do his thing, because he was like he was a mercenary. But then the people inside 3 thought that the G3 was the RX-78, and they thought that the ninja was Amuro. So they killed the ninja. And so his apprentice then took the Gundam and then retrofitted it and turned it into a close combat quarters prototype mobile suit, but basically kind of resembles like ninja aesthetics. And then he used that as his mercenary suit up into the late UC 88.
Yeah, that the whole, I mean, anything that hasn't been committed to animation for the most part.
No, it hasn't. But, yeah,
fairly lost on me. I was familiar with Hathaway's Flash.
And there's Sentinel Gundam too, and then all the other video game adaptations with like Destiny, Pale Rider, and stuff like that. But it's cool. Yeah. I mean, I've done a lot of Gundam research in the last like seven to 10 years.
Yeah. That's the thing too, is that when I wasn't paying attention to Gundam, my attention mostly got caught up with like seinen stuff, like old like 70s stuff, like Go Nagai stuff, like my big double man tattoo right here.
Nice.
So I kind of fell off, or like when I was like getting into mecha, it was like other shit, cross and I was trying to get into I can never say it right, but like Pat Labor, whatever, however.
Oh, Pat. Yeah. I mean, I just call it Pat labor. We actually, so Gabe Inocencio is actually a huge Macross fan. He and I actually volunteered and or I was a manager for the Macross convention way back in the day.
Oh
Actually, that
wow.
was the convention that right after that convention, that's when I met Sunny.
Oh really?
So yeah, that holds a pretty special place in my heart.
Oh
Um,
wow.
and then so Gabe actually he does a ton of stuff with Macross, and he actually has tons of those Valkyries,
Oh wow.
those metal build Valkyries. I've actually held some of them in my hand. I'm like, dang, these are really cool. I kind of want to get one. He was like, yeah, each of those are about like $250, $400. I'm like, put it back gently.
Yes. No, that's another reason why like I can't afford to get in the model building, quite frankly.
You can.
Like,
So we can actually do another segment too. I'll even type this in a little chat. You can do cheap model building.
oh, there's a chat.
Yeah, there's a chat function on Zoom. But yeah, so we can do a cheap model kit building, and I can give you some tips and tricks on how to, be able to optimize that. I also know lots of other vendors here in the San Diego and Southern California area, so we can hook you up with, I'm not gonna say cheap, reasonably priced products. So, and I know that there's some suits that you really like. For example, like the new Gundam.
Yeah.
I know that you like the new Gundam, and the new Gundam real grade that came out basically within the last like 3 years is probably the pinnacle real grade model kit to date. So that might be something that you might be very interested in getting, especially if you like the old UC stuff. There's releasing the real grade Zeong. So that looks amazing. And they also have a last shooting P Bandai weapon set. So you can actually replicate the last shooting pose.
Oh wow, yeah, because oh man, I really want I really love like a nice like Sazabi and stuff
They
like
also
that.
have a real grade Sazabi. So
Okay, that's another thing too, is that since I'm not hip to all the Gunpla thing, like this is a RG, so that's real grade.
yes, that's a real grade. Sorry, as a real grade 1/144th scale, so roughly 5 to 6 inch scale Gundam model kit.
Okay, so that's another thing too, is that they they grade these things according to scale to robots who not exist in real life.
Well, so each of these Gundams actually do have specific measurements. So
Oh, yeah.
a mechanical engineer actually goes in and creates the designs for these suits. They have an overall head height. They also have a weight, and they also have a generator output. And so that's why we know that the 1-to-1 scale Gundam in Odaiba is actually 1-to-1 scale, because we know that the Gundam is actually 18 meters. And we know that the old 1-to-1 scale RX-78 Gundam,
That's no longer around right now. It's a unicorn, right?
Yeah, that's the one that's no longer around. The unicorn is now the one that's out there.
They're making the RX-78 in Yokohama. That's mobile.
So they're making that one, but that's actually now called technically the RX-78 F00. It's a different version of the RX-78 because it has different lights, different structures on its shoulder pads, on its legs, and the proportions are a little bit different. So it actually looks a lot slimmer. And then the angle of its chest seems to protrude out a little bit more in order to work with some of the counterbalancing that needs to do for actual movement. And so when you look at the silhouette, along with like all the other additional plating and like etching that's done on the suit, it's significantly different in design compared to the original RX-78. But there's also like 17 other designs of the RX-78. So, I mean, like, go figure, right? But yeah, so we know that because in these technical specifications, they're usually found in like art books or in the model kit pamphlets. You'll actually see the height, weight, and generator output specifications. They then take that and then specifically put it down to 1/44 of that scale. And that's what the real grade, high grade line is supposed to be. Actually, if you remember those old Gundam Wing kits, those old Gundam Wing kits are also 1/144th scale. In American terminology, they're referred to as the N scale. So instead of using actual numbers, they actually are breaking it down by the alphabet. But yeah, so they're affectionately called N scales in the American model kit system compared to the Japanese model kit system. So, or the Western model kit system. But yeah, I can totally do a little segment where I just introduce more model kit knowledge to you.
We could do that. I don't know if I don't know if I can maintain that kind of knowledge at 1 a.m.
Oh no, probably not. But anyway, it is kind of getting late. So, did you have any final thoughts or anything else that you wanted to talk about?
I'm just glad to be here. I hope to
Thanks, man.
Be on more constructive episodes in the future. Even this is just recorded for our purposes.
Oh no, it's fun. Definitely getting out there. So this will be our archive.
So yeah, for anybody else that sees us, I'm sorry that my room's a mess.
That's okay, man.
But no, it's cool to have a very good Gundam podcast to be a part of, even though I'm the guy that got you into it. You went ahead and
don't worry, man.
You untapped a whole other level of attention to detail that I would probably I'm too dumb to give this to you.
You're not too dumb. If anything, I still consistently and will always look up to you as the person who has introduced me to Gundam and to everything like that. But yeah, you will always and consistently be the guy that I will look up to. Because you are the person who introduced me to all this stuff, and I still think that you're like one of the smartest people out there. Let me just put that out there for the world to know. So
you caught me on an off night.
Yeah, no, you're brilliant. But anyway, thank you so much for everybody who was able to tune in today. Thank you, Aaron, for being able to share your knowledge with us.
Glad to be here.
We'll be very excited to see what people have to say in the comments. If you would like, feel free to join our Facebook group so you can continue on the conversation. Until then, we'll see everybody next time.
Night.